It's the movable object against the resistible force tonight at MSG. That's right, the Senators invade Madison Square Garden to face the Rangers, two struggling teams, although the Senators did win on Tuesday night over the Vancouver Canucks, but it's just been a monstrosity over the last couple of weeks. So that's what we have to look forward to. Game night, we'll see how it goes, but I've got a lot more to talk about before we delve into that one. Hey everybody, I'm Todd Werwa, your host for Rangers Daily, presented by FanArch. Please subscribe. We're getting close to 500 subscribers. Really appreciate it. Want to blow that number out of the water. Ring the bell so you know each time I post a new episode. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content. And as always, leave your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your rants, rages, whatever it may be, down below. Movie quotes, whatever you want. I appreciate it all. Let's start with a little bit of what came out of practice after the loss the other day to Seattle. Quoting Mike Sullivan and the lines, he left the lines the same at practice. So I guess the expression is, if it ain't working, don't fix it. Sully said, we've got to bring an unwavering level of enthusiasm into what we do every day if we're going to ultimately pull ourselves out of this. We all have a conscious choice in how we're going to approach it. It starts with our attitude. Whew, that's both something good and an indictment of where they are right now. Obviously, I've talked about the team, the players as well, talked about being fragile at the moment, lack of confidence. It's tough when you're really struggling to say, hey, just come out and let's remember to have fun. Let's, put all our effort into it and make this enjoyable. My thought on it is, I think Sully's system has stifled some of the enthusiasm out of them, but I will get to that later when we hit our viewer mail segment. But it's not easy to come to the rink thrilled to do your job when you're struggling, you're constantly getting asked the same questions, you realize you're falling farther out of the playoff race, your stars are hurt or not performing, and I get it. They're professionals, they're getting paid a lot of money, they should be there ready to play every single night. As we've seen, that isn't often the case with this team. They are human. Let's not forget that. Not everybody can be 100% every single night. The expression is you give 100% of what you have. We don't often see them give 100%. We're always talking about, well, the effort wasn't there then, or they could only muster for a period, all of that. So Sully wants unwavering enthusiasm coming in. It sounded like there was a good practice. He said they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. You get those mid-season doldrums and things start to snowball, right? You have the injuries. You made it to the Winter Classic, right? That was sort of a pillar on the calendar, a tentpole thing you look at and you go, oh, I can't wait till we get to that. And then you pass it and you're like, okay, wait a minute. We only have 13, 11, 10, whatever it is now. After that Winter Classic, I think it was 13 or 14 until the Olympic break. So you've got that as another sort of tentpole highlight on the calendar. All right, now let's get to that Olympic break. And sometimes you get in those doldrums and you want to get to that next thing. You let down after the earlier big thing. Then you've got trade deadline. That's one thing coming up as one of those other dates you circle on the calendar. And once after that, okay, the guys in the room are the guys in the room. No one's leaving or coming. Then, you hit sort of that end of the season. You put that on the calendar right after March 6th, that mid-April, like April 14th-ish. And sometimes you get in these lulls where things are going poorly and you're not 100% into it, and one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you're not performing at your best, especially when you've already struggled leading into that. It stinks that Sullivan has to ask for enthusiasm, has to sort of demand enthusiasm, but we've seen their effort goes away after one period, half a period, two periods. So doesn't look like any changes, but look for enthusiasm, unwavering enthusiasm. Maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see that tonight against the Sens, whatever that actually means. Sullivan also gave an update on a bunch of the injured players, Shesterkin, Fox, Edstrom, and Sheary. He was asked if any of them might be skating soon, and he said, I think they're a little bit further away. So, to quote Rick Pitino, Larry Bird ain't walking through that door. A healthy Adam Fox, a healthy Igor Shesterkin ain't walking through that door to come in as replacements. So it's got to be done by the guys in the room. They've got to find a way amongst themselves to find that enthusiasm, to overplay what they've been up to this point. Even Jonathan Quick, the most sort of energetic, upbeat guy, seemed a little demoralized in the sound today. I got to try and allow one less goal or make one more save, but he didn't have any sort of spark to him. It's a whole bunch of guys looking for answers. I don't really think they're getting great leadership, and they're discouraged. They're a little downtrodden and probably a little confused as to how it got like this. But when you don't put in the effort, when you don't have the talent, when you don't play the speed game that the modern NHL requires, you get a team that's down at the bottom of points percentage in the Eastern Conference. That's sadly what happens. But let's see if the Rangers can show some spark against the Senators. Senators are 3-6-1 like in their last 10. Like I said, they beat Vancouver on Tuesday night 2-1. They have some great numbers, and this was from Natural Stat Trick before the game against Vancouver. But let me read some of these for you. Oh, by the way, the Rangers are 2-6-2 in their last 10. So hence the two competing awful teams. At 5-on-5, expected goals for percentage. All of these numbers are at 5-on-5. The Senators' expected goals for percentage is 53.83. That's fourth in the NHL. Their attempts percentage, 52.88. So they're driving play over their opponents. That number is fifth in the NHL. Their high danger chance for percentage is 53.78. That's fifth in the NHL. And here's why they're not a successful team in many ways. Their save percentage at 5-on-5 is 88.64, which is 31st in the NHL. Obviously, if you've been following the Sens a little bit, you know the Linus Ullmark situation and, leaving for personal reasons. He had been playing well early, then stopped playing well, then left the team. Now there's sort of some other controversy, and the GM, Steve Stais, had to come out and blast internet trolls and social media for spreading false rumors. They don't really have now a number one. They just signed James Reimer to a deal because they need to get somebody decent in the pipes, but they have good offensive numbers. What I want to talk about is how they're built, and it's such the opposite reflection. Obviously, they're a team that really struggled for a while, for years, and are trying to get back to the playoffs. And just think about, I talk about the Rangers all the time about having 32 and 34-year-olds and then having 24 and, some 20-year-olds, and they don't necessarily have those guys in their prime that they can really build on. Well, take a listen to how the Senators are built. And obviously, they go through struggles because of the youth of this lineup. But guys who are doing great. Fabian Zetterlund, he's 26. Tim Stützle, 23. Drake Batherson, 27. Brady Tkachuk is 26. Dylan Cousins is 24. Ridley Gregg is 23. Shane Pinto is 25. And Thomas Chabot is 28. as you get more of the defense. Jake Sanderson is 23. Michael Amadio, not a star, but a role player. He's 29. They do have some experienced veterans, right? You can't deny. Claude Giroux is 38. David Perron is 37. Lars Eller is 36. But you see how that core is young, approaching their prime, or getting to their prime. And that's why if they got a goaltender, hey, you want Shesterkin? If they got goaltending and maybe even some better coaching, they have the build that can sustain some playoff years, because the big-time core of this team are hitting their stride or hitting their prime. Their future is really up ahead, as opposed to, their future being the downside of the hill, like it feels like the Rangers are. So as you're watching tonight's game, really keep an eye on how much they play with youthful exuberance, how much they play with speed, how much they play with, I want to say reckless abandon, because they do, they play with structure and all of that, but how much the young talent, really shapes their top lines, their top pairs, and special teams, how much the young talent really contributes to their success, and how they have to live with some mistakes. It's what you have to do, when you're in that phase. But boy, that's a pretty strong, youthful, and in its prime core. Should be an interesting game, an interesting battle between two very different teams. All right, lastly, viewer mail. You guys have been great posting comments over the last couple of days. Wanted to read a few and answer a few thoughts. Some of them have, some good responses, some good laughs. So this is over the last couple of shows after the Boston debacle and after the Seattle loss. Let me start with this one. It's Kolsk Shreds, Kolsk Shreds. Was a day ago. Interesting question. Curious as a Penguins fan to hear Ranger fans' take on the job Sully is doing. As an outside observer, even before Sully got fired and hired, I was seeing the Rangers roster developing some serious holes. Very true. Sully is a great coach, but is too committed to his system, trying to hammer square pegs into round holes, and he lost the Pens locker room. Asking players to do things they weren't capable of executing became maddening to watch. Thank you for the comment. Very interesting. Not, off base or out of left field at all. Remember earlier this season, Erik Karlsson wound up saying words to that effect, that under Dan Muse, he was allowed to do more of the things that he finds instinctual, and it very much was that trying to get guys to do things they weren't accustomed to doing, or not, how do I say this? Not making each move to play to each player's strengths, but trying to position them in a way to do things that weren't necessarily the things they were best at. And Karlsson, it was a very veiled but unveiled shot at Sullivan. For me, this is sort of twofold. One, yes, I agree. I think he's had to impart structure, because the Rangers had none last year. The defense was terrible, and he needed to come in and get them to play defense, because it needed them to focus on defense and play defense, because they were so bad at it. And there was no way to win games if they continued to play the poor defense that they did, right? He changed from man-to-man to zone, different marking system, getting forwards to really consider a 200-foot game. But in that, I think there are a lot of situations, and if you go to the Rangers page on Reddit, there was an interesting thing from Marty St. Louis talking about, Ivan Demidov, and about you don't want to overcoach these guys, the young guys. You want to let them play and make the mistakes, but also let them be free and do what they want. And the person was making the sort of contrast to how the Rangers over coach, Lafreniere should be coach to be, should be let go, let loose, run wild. And instead, each coach tries to pigeon him into this net front, back-checking kind of person that he just isn't. I'd love to see them just be let play, but I think Sully realized, it played into what he does, but he realized the lack of talent, high-end talent on this team, youthful, fast, speedy, skilled talent, the lack thereof, and that to be able to compete, they had to play the shutdown game. They can't be Carolina with youthful speed, attacking and shooting all the time because they just don't have the guys to do it, and they just don't have the guys to recover when they can't recover the puck after said shots, etc. So I think it's twofold. I get what Sullivan's doing. I think, though, that a lot of this north-south robotic sort of game has led to way too many dump-ins, way too many chips, way too many punt and hunt. The forecheck hasn't been what it should be, and I really think it's stifled them. But you're dealt, you got to play the cards that you're dealt in the hand, and, you're trying to manufacture wins when you don't have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and, Brian Rust and all those guys he had in Pittsburgh. Let me get to the next one for you. This is from Neil Gibbs, 3185. It's long. I'll trim it down. New to your podcast, enjoyed the no BS style. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that very much. I live in the UK, but have been a Rangers fan for years. Cut to something later. This team is slow, lacks competitive aggression, and a real will to win that typifies the very best professional sportsmen. As you rightly point out, they keep spewing out the platitudinous drivel in after-match interviews. They always know what they're not doing, but have no clue or real desire to put it right. First, I love the way you use the phrase platitudinous drivel. Yeah, it feels like they just speak the right things, but then never do the right things. JT Miller, Vinny Trocheck, Zibanejad seems lost all the time, but I really think it's Miller and Trocheck are the two that really jump out for me as, I can be accountable and say the right things after, but then you're still going to see me not give the full effort, not back check, not fight for pucks, not crash the net. Yeah, that you put it perfectly. They have no clue or real desire to put it right. Joe Turco, 6767, says, not much insight here, but I have to say it. Not only are the Rangers a bad team, they are a boring team. I find them hard to watch more often than not. Typically, I watch the first period and don't come back for the second. Maybe that makes me a bad fan. I don't know. They are such a letdown. No, it doesn't make you a bad fan. It makes you a fan. And listen, there are so many teams out there that play exciting, very fast, very skilled, modern hockey. The Avalanche, the Stars, the Hurricanes. I enjoy watching the Golden Knights, certainly enjoy watching the Edmonton Oilers. There's a whole bunch that, really play a fun brand of hockey. And then there are others that just don't have the talent to keep up. And the way to do it is to try to slow down the whole thing. And, I can't stand the Rangers not shooting more. I can't stand, it's low event hockey, and that just isn't fun to watch. Plus they're out of games or they don't start on time, so they're sort of out early. I feel your pain, Joe. Yeah, it's a letdown. No disagreement. Mark Johnson, 2610, talking about the game against Seattle. Second straight game where the Rangers score first early and then just stop playing, stop scoring. Hell, stop even shooting, stop defending. The first Seattle goals looked almost casual. The third one had two Kraken in the blue paint hacking away at Quick until they scored. Try that on another team and enjoy concussion protocol, but of course, no fighting. Well, yes, a lot of people have mentioned, why is it Jonathan Quick has to defend himself instead of other people coming over and clearing out the crease and, standing up for their goalie? Part of the problem on that goal, the go-ahead goal where they're whacking away at Quick, was they had a bad change. They had guys out of position, and the guys were almost there alone. Miller didn't come back. Guys didn't come back. Yeah, some guys should have been flattened, but because of a variety of misplays and missed assignments, the guys who should have been there weren't there. It was rather pathetic. But yes, it would be nice if it wasn't just Sam Carrick and Jonathan Quick standing up for the team. Wish there were others. Talked about that the other day. And finally, Alex BNYC. At this point, just forget the system and go all out offense so they start losing games 9-8 rather than 1-0. I'd love to see it, but I don't know that they'd lose games 9-8. We might just see more 10-2 embarrassments. But I'd love to see them say, guys, just go out and play. Do what you do. I'd love to see them put Miller at center, Trocheck at center, and Zibanejad at center, and then maybe Laba as the fourth line center, or you can put Carrick in, but play the three strong guys they have up the middle on the three lines, and just let them be centers and go and see what happens. But they're in this very defensive-minded, robotic, north-south, chip it in, oftentimes give up possession kind of game, and it can be frustrating. I'd love to see them, that San Jose early season game that was the crazy 6-5 game. It would be great to see more of those. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed hearing some of the comments. Enjoy the game. I'll have a recap and trade rumors and all that sort of stuff on Thursday. And as always, thanks for watching.